Okay, so let's just jump right into the ending because there's a lot to talk about there. First, and the most obvious thing to talk about is let's be real here. The fight isn't over. There's no way. There's no way. Way whatsoever Oda would end the fight like that. Even if the intended result is still for Luffy to lose, Oda never goes the anticlimactic. Very rarely, if ever, goes the anticlimactic route. Like he always makes sure to end a fight when it's reached its peak of dramatic effect. And if anything, I think the dumbass CP0 agent fucked up in more than one sense of the word. Where in his attempt to end the fight, it might have actually done more to help Luffy because as readers, we've known for a long while that Gear 5 is coming. It's just a matter of figuring out the circumstances by which it's going to be activated or revealed to us. And if Gear 5 as an ability does in fact utilize the concepts of the concepts of Row that Kyogoto was teaching Luffy, then I feel that dumbass might have just created the perfect circumstances for Gear 5's activation. And honestly, even if that wasn't the case, the guy is still a dead man walking because, as we see from Kaido's reaction and him recalling back to the exact same thing happening in his battle with Oden, he's not going to let the interference slide this time around. Because when you get down to it, Kaido has the only thing Kaido has ever wanted is a good battle with an opponent who can match him blow for blow, whether in strength or just endurance. But as we've seen at this point, but as we've seen from what happened with Oden and now with Luffy, every time he has gotten that battle, someone is always there interfering for one reason or another. With Oden, it was Orochi wanting to secure and maintain his position as ruler of Wano, so he concocted the whole bullshit thing with Momonosuke being kidnapped. Whereas here, it's the government making that last-ditch effort to kill Luffy before everything falls out of their control. And I'm not necessarily getting, and in this case, I'm not necessarily getting the vibe that Kaido believes in the third strike rule. So, yeah, that CP9 douche better start saying any final words he wishes to say because Kaido's gonna kill him. Like, that's just kind of the reality of it. Like, Kaido's dead. Like, the dude's dead now just for basically interfering with his fight. Now, with that being said, I'm not entirely sure which one. Now, with that said, in terms of like in terms of like what we see and the possibility of Gear 5 happening now, I'm not entirely sure which one is going to come first after this chapter, whether it's going to be Luffy activating Gear 5 or Kaido destroying the Flower Capital. Because, especially now that Luffy has been knocked out, I can kind of see it being the former over the latter, especially now with Kaido appearing as angry as he is at CP0's interference. And that in itself could just as easily be the emotional trigger for Kaido to say, fuck it all and destroy the capital. But even like, and that would honestly work because it would be the absolute biggest miscalculation on the government's part. Like, I don't think that they necessarily are going to account for the fact that Kaido is going to be so enraged by CP0's interference that he would destroy the Flower Capital. And so narratively, I think that could work. But even more so, what makes me believe that is that we've kind of reached that climax point now climax point now is, one thing that makes me realize that climax point now is the scene where we do see like the citizens of Wano lighting the lantern boats. Like, it's one of those. It's a very simple scene, obviously, but it's only now that I'm realizing it. But Oda's been using like scenes like that, like from scenes with the citizens of Wano lighting the lantern boats, as a sort of pseudo countdown in order to mark when the Flower Capital will be destroyed. And now that the lanterns are being lit, I'd say that's basically like the final countdown moment. Like, I think I think from like now that the lanterns are being lit, I'd say we've probably only got like the next handful of chapters before Kaido vaporizes Wano. And honestly, what makes me even believe it even more is that assuming Luffy doesn't wake up with Gear 5 immediately activated, then Kaido destroying Wano could also act as like the final emotional push in order for him to finally like make it to that point of saying like finally make it to that point of to that emotional boiling point of just of finally activating Gear 5. Like we basically know that every time Luffy's tapped into a new power, it's been under extreme emotional stress, and even though the whole Row thing is something that, even though Row as a concept is one that's kind of more delved into inner peace, I think I can see how Kaido destroying Wano could still possibly work in terms of getting Luffy like emotionally rolled up to activate Gear 5, I think. Um, with that said, though, I have been kind of harsh on the CP0 agent in this review, so I do want to talk about something I did find interesting, which is that in the final moments before defeating Drake, he does say he's envious of Drake's sense of justice. And that itself does kind of give an interesting insight where you realize a lot of Cypher Pol, but especially those in CP9 and CP0, aren't necessarily allowed to form their own ideals of justice. Like it's weird to say, but when you look at the Navy, they themselves have actually like a lot more freedom compared to Cypher Pol when it comes to allowing people to kind of form their own ideas of justice. But yeah, when it comes to CP9 and CP0, the Cypher Pol isn't allowed to. Cypher Pol agents aren't allowed to form their own sense of justice like in the Navy. With Cypher Pol, there's only ever one absolute creed of justice they must follow, obey, and live by. And you start to realize this man whose name we don't even know wasn't even allowed to live his life on his own terms. He's lived and died solely to follow the orders of the government. And it's a simple thing to look into, but it does make me want a flashback, however small, of this man's life, because again, for a character whose name we don't even know, I have had my curiosity piqued, and it does make me say I want a flashback of this guy's life. Like, I don't know, it's just something that kind of got me curious now. Now, with that said, I think the only genuine problem I have with this chapter is that I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but once again, it's a chapter where Oda seems to have trouble balancing the pacing a little bit in this section of Wano, because like I'm not gonna say this chapter wasn't great, but we really only focused on the fight with Kaido and on CP0's little trap. But as far as the actual like narrative implications of the story, there wasn't really a whole lot unless you look under the surface maybe. But it's like one of those things where the pacing, we didn't really move all that far with the pacing, honestly. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter and Crunchyroll. Be sure to hit the notification bell, the subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, everyone.